I am rearranging my microphone because I moved it around, but I need to put it back in the place that it's supposed to be so that I'm actually coming through the right way. But hello to all of you, and I hope that you are having a wonderful day, night, evening, morning, whatever it might be in your corner of the world. Hey Joey, welcome. Hope you're doing all right. And it is a viewer request night. Hey Pistol Pete, welcome. Got that first dose of the Pfizer? Welcome. And good news. I'm glad you were able to secure that first dose there. First one didn't really do very much to me. It made my arm sore for a while. For about a day and a half, I felt like somebody had just slugged me really hard in the arm. So it wasn't that bad. The second one actually didn't make my arm hurt as bad. And I didn't really have any sort of bad reaction. The next day, I sort of felt like I had spent a lot of time working, like physically working. Like maybe I had gone on a really rigorous hike. I was just a little, want to sit on the couch and watch TV kind of day. But I didn't have any bad reaction. Now, unfortunately, my really good friend and mod in the channel, KP, he actually had COVID. So he got his first dose, and that was essentially his second reaction to the antibodies, and it knocked him down pretty bad. And then he just last Friday got his second dose, so that would have been basically his third round, and it knocked him on his hiney, and he felt pretty bad the next day. But most people are not going to be in that situation. Remind you of the meningitis shot. I've never had that before. Mom got a low-grade fever. My mom got a fever as well, but it was only for about maybe 18 hours or so before the fever broke. So it's a lot better than spending time in the hospital, and it's a lot better than losing your sense of smell and taste. Meningitis shot leaves you sore for like 2 weeks. Eep. That's unfortunate. The hunk. My first dose had me puking all night. Wow, that's unfortunate. But I'm glad that you were able to get one. Hope everything's going well in your world, Hunk. It is your night. It is the night for the Hunk. Hunk redeemed the Choose Your Own Adventure and has chosen for us famous people from the city of Florence. And it's been an interesting prep for this one. I briefly thought that I was going to be able to get this done last week. I had some thoughts that I might be able to run a viewer request stream basically 3 weeks in a row instead of taking every other week off. And that didn't work. I ran out of time, partially because I was having a really tough time narrowing down who I was going to talk about. Florence is a very old city and has had a lot of people come through, and it was sort of like picking a top 10 list or top 15 list of hundreds and hundreds of famous people. So I started having to make some criteria for myself, and the one that seemed to fit the best was you had to have been born in Florence, not born somewhere else and then moved to Florence. So everybody tonight that we will talk about was born in Florence and lived there for a substantial portion of their life. And that allowed me to basically cut out a lot of people that are sort of famous as Florentines that were not actually born in Florence. So that narrowed my list down enough that I could start making some pretty heavy cuts. But I also really, really wanted to talk about and show a lot of pictures tonight. This sort of was in conjunction with the request from Hunk was sort of in conjunction with our friend Cassidy Austin, who streams here on Twitch. And she lived for a while in Florence, and she is an artist, a rather skilled artist as a Hunk. And I wanted to try to make sure that I was able to showcase some neat things that are in and around Florence that sort of peripherally tie in. So I've got actually a little bit larger selection of pictures than I normally do tonight, but that's okay. Kesty was fine after her first dose. Yeah, I think it hits everybody a little bit differently. And there's a lot of stuff about, like, is it your blood type? Is it your glucose level? There's a whole bunch of other stuff going on. It's weird to you. You're on the prioritized list for your age group in Norway, but you still haven't offered the vaccine. They don't even know when I'll be offered it, except probably sometime this summer. Meanwhile, one of the worst countries in handling the pandemic is already offering the vaccine to everyone. Yeah, I guess. What up, Emmy? Welcome. Lots of friends already tonight, just right off the bat. Hope everybody's having a good one. How are you all? The way that the world has approached vaccine distribution and purchase has been very uneven, and we knew that it was going to be uneven from the beginning because of the power of really big economic countries like the United States, like European countries and things like that. And we always knew that it was going to have different effects in different areas of the world. I did not really expect it to be as pronounced as it actually is. So maybe that was me being naive. Maybe that was me hoping that people realize that we have a lot more in common than it seems. But I don't know. It's been pretty rough. Oh, the pink Jesus. If you all are not familiar with the pink Jesus, I will not spoil the story for you, but you should probably go check out Cave Geek's stream while he's playing XCOM. It's a delightful little inside joke. All right. Before we get started, I need to share some stuff. Yes, he is in Cancun. He is in, not on a vacation. He is in Cancun because of, how do I say this politely? The American insurance system for health, dental, and vision is a scam. And we'll just leave it at that. So he's not down there soaking up the sun. He's down there having to have some health and dental procedures. So I'm not trying to spread Cave's business everywhere, but he would tell you the same thing. But apparently he's eating really good guacamole and hanging out at restaurants because he's been sharing really cool pictures. He's in Cancun because the feds were closing in. That's possible. Let's go with that one. His cover was blown. All right, so at the end of our last stream on Thursday, I had meant to share with you some cool stuff that I had received in. Friend of the channel, really cool guy, and pretty awesome art streamer, Joby Dore, ran a Kickstarter a few months ago that was well beyond successful. It was his first one ever, and it blew out basically all of his goals. And I was able to throw a few bucks at it, and I wanted to share the loot because every time I get artwork in, I always try to share the loot with everybody. So I got the tier that I had got a little free doodle. So I got this really neat pen ink flower doodle from the Joby, and I wish that he would do more stuff with the traditional art because he's got some really nice line work going here. I like his composition. The balance of the picture is really nice. He got good line control. Scams are a scam. Hey, David, welcome. But I also got some cool stickers. So I got this really neat, like, scythe with a snake sticker, which is his original artwork. I got a bird skull with some sort of fleur-de-lis / grain decoration stuff. And I got this pretty wicked butterfly with deer skull and swirly things sticker. So If you are not already following Joby Dore, please do go follow Joby Dore. He is a great guy. He and Moose run a podcast on Sundays that I have been on. David has been on. A couple of other people that hang out in the chat have been on. It's really good for anybody that is interested in art or art as a profession. Daria was on last week and shared another whole stream of really awesome stuff. Hey, Honeycomb System, welcome. Glad to see you. So while we've got everybody here, let's just go ahead and do all of the shout outs because we've got lots of good streamers. I want to make sure that everybody already knows. We will do all the shout outs. So Color by Emmy. We should go follow all of these people. I don't share this because I feel any sort of, I don't know, like I owe them anything. I share this because I really do want you to go follow. And I don't want this to be like, oh, look, Shane's doing the shout-out stuff again. He's just going to spam a whole bunch of links, and then we're just going to hang out in the chat, and we're not going to do anything for like 5 minutes while he... No, like, for real. You should go follow these people because they're cool, and you'll appreciate hanging out in their rooms. Did I miss anybody? Anybody else? Nope, I think I got everybody. So, seriously, do go follow these people, and seriously go hang out in their chat rooms. It'll make your day better. Okay, so let's talk about famous Florentines. So again, just to clarify for anybody that might be coming in, we have eliminated a lot of people from this list because there are just too many people to choose from. So these people were all first born in Florence, like in the city of Florence itself, and they lived there for a significant period of their lives. And I have them broken down into sections. We're going to talk about politicians, we're going to talk about artists, and we're going to talk about writers, and we're going to talk about people that do fashion stuff, and we're going to talk about a lot of church stuff. And one of the themes that is going to keep happening in a lot of the stories that we're going to share tonight is that popes keep getting involved. And this is partially because the city of Florence is a banking center. And this is going to be something that starts fairly early in the 1300s. And by the time we get to the late 1300s and 1400s AD, Florence is going to be one of the banking centers of Europe. Of course, this means that they're going to have lots and lots of money. Prior to that, Florence was actually really big in wool and fabric. That was sort of their big business model. A lot of people worked in the textile industry. The banking stuff is going to draw in a lot of money, and one of the guys that really gets that off the ground, Cassidy is running late, but she'll be here as soon as she can. So should I talk slower? No, it's not Cosimo, it's Cosimo. Hey, Figment, welcome. No, don't wait. Okay, cool. Cosimo de' Medici was the papacy originally envisioned as a political / financial position? No. So the position of pope, and this will actually answer this question and will give ourselves a little bit of a buffer here. So the position of pope actually comes from an old Christian system that set up around the 200s AD. There were several large cities that were considered to be sort of the important cities of Christianity. So basically like the places to go if you had Christian questions. You go to the leaders of these churches, and there were 5 of them after the Council of Nicaea, which happens in the 320s AD. At the Council of Nicaea, these 5 patriarch cities really got sort of nailed down. And they were, and we can show these on the map here. In Jerusalem, right here, Alexandria in Egypt, up here in Antioch, which is in modern-day Syria, over here in what is today Istanbul, but Constantinople, and then the city of Rome. But here's the thing. Constantine went on to basically split up the empire. And this is something that a guy named Diocletian had done before him in 284 AD, but Constantine had reunified it, and he's going to split it up again for his children. But Rome was just too big to govern. And so they basically split the Roman Empire in half. And you have this thing over here that's called the... Yes, they had the Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch. They had the Western Roman Empire and the Eastern Roman Empire. And so here's the thing. If we're looking at these patriarch cities, 4 of the patriarchs were in the East. Now, the East did have a higher population, so that made sense.
I'm Spartacus!
Jay Axer.
Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
Jay Axer, thank you so much for that. And the honeycomb system, you are now a part of the adventure, and we will share our really cool Spartacus emotes. Thank you so much for that, Jay. You are that. Everybody go follow Jay. Seriously go follow Jay. Don't just look at that and go, he's doing that thing again. But seriously, go follow Jay. Jay is a great artist. He's a great guy. His stream's really chill. You should go hang out and check out his cool art. Happy Tuesday to you too, Jay. And if Kami's around, happy Tuesday to Kami as well. So we're talking about where this whole concept of the papacy comes from, and this is going to get us actually around to our topic here, or our stream title. So if we're looking at the Eastern Roman Empire, there are 4 of these patriarch cities, and because the population is pretty high over there, you know, each church placed, like the bishop of Antioch and the bishop of Jerusalem and the bishop of Constantinople and the bishop of Alexandria, they all have pretty big congregations. But let's look at Rome. Rome is the only patriarch city in the entire Western Roman Empire. So if you were a Christian in the Western Roman Empire, you looked to Rome as your direction. So the Bishop of Rome had this enormous territory. And over time, what happens is that the bishops of Rome start distancing themselves a little bit from the other patriarchs. And especially as the Islamic faith spreads out and all of these other patriarch cities fall under Muslim control, the Bishop of Rome is going to become even more powerful. And they begin developing a particular view of the Bishop of Rome that's based around the Apostle Peter. There is a moment between Jesus and Peter where Jesus is speaking to his disciples, and he says, who do you all say that I am? And some of his disciples are like, some people say that you're Isaiah. And they're like, no. Some people are like, some people say you're a prophet. He's like, kinda. But then Peter goes, you are the Son of God. And Jesus is like, yeah. But the specific phrase that he says here is important. And he says, blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for your mind did not reveal this to you, but God did. And upon this rock, I will build my church. And at that point, Simon's name gets changed to Peter, which in Greek is Petros, which means rock. And so the Catholic Church in Rome starts thinking, well, Peter founded the church in Rome, right? So Peter was supposedly the disciple that had gone over to Rome and founded the first Christian church there. So the Bishop of Rome was basically kind of descended in teaching or in apostolic succession, which is the fancy thing that they call it. So if Jesus had said that he was going to build his church on Peter, and Peter founded the church in Rome, that means the church in Rome is special, so the bishop of the church in Rome is special, and that's where the supremacy of the Pope starts working. And over centuries of time, that position just becomes more and more and more influential, and by the time we get to 1054 AD, the Eastern Church and the Western Church are just completely broken apart by this thing called the Great Schism, and that is going to further cement the Western Christian Church as looking towards the Pope, and that's really going to turn the whole thing into a political powerhouse because the Pope gets to decide who goes to heaven and who goes to hell. And if the Pope is going to get involved in putting kings on thrones, like, the Pope crowns Charlemagne, the Holy Roman Emperor, right? The Pope is going to work with this Visigoth king named Recared, who basically converts the entire Visigothic kingdom of Spain into Christianity because the Pope gave him the blessing. So the Pope has all of these sort of unwritten powers that are going to give him a lot of leverage in a lot of positions and a whole lot of angles to play in the big game. On this rock I will find my church, build my church. Doesn't it mean rocks are special? Sort of. Doesn't this tie into the other verse about building a house on a foundation of sand? That's a parable. And that is the parable of the wise builder, the guy who builds a house on a sand and then watches his house fall away, or the guy that builds a house on the rock and it endures the storm. That is not directly related, though, in Scripture. The Pope is a scam. You could be a king, too, for just 3 easy payments of $19.95. A little bit more than that. Because of the feudal system, kings controlled land, and nobody else really technically owned land in Europe. So the Pope really liked to prove that you were king by you donating land to the church, because the land went to the church and then could never basically be taken back. Also, you couldn't tax the church. So the Pope is getting land and amassing farms and monasteries that they put on these lands that are all tax-free. So the Pope is also making money off of that. So cool stuff. Like a high priest, but also like swooped a role not really meant for them because Jesus fulfills it. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. But you know what they would say? They would say Popin ain't easy. And this is actually a really funny story that I can share with you as a little bit of an explanation as where this came from. So first off, we all know the song, right? I hope so. When I was teaching high school, there's a kid in my class named Brandon. He was a great kid. I enjoyed having him in class. He had a great sense of humor. And we were looking at a picture of John Paul II, who was riding down the street on the Pope Mobile. And if you don't know what the Pope Mobile is, it's a vehicle that has sort of this plexiglass bubble that the Pope rides in so that he can be seen. And Brandon looks at the picture of the Pope and he's like, man, that guy be pimping. And I was like, well, you know, the Pope has to take a vow of celibacy. So I doubt that he's pimping. And Brandon goes, oh, well then he must be popin'. And to that I responded, and we all know popin' ain't easy. So that's actually a true story of how this title came about. And I figured it would be appropriate for tonight because so much of the stuff in Florence gets dragged into the papal situation, and all the popes are getting involved, and there's excommunications and threats and all this fun stuff. So, potatoes. The Catholic Church founded on a cult that gives itself the power of authority it condemns in Scripture. Ooh, now that's a spicy hot take. Cassidy is here on audio, but doesn't have chat because she's at dinner, but wanted me to say hi and thank you for her. Aw, thanks. Hey, Cassidy, welcome. Eat that dinner. There's a bit about church acquiring land from the nearly dead in season 1 of Blackadder. There is. A delightful show. And I would suggest the Black Russian Codpiece because it always terrifies the clergy. Which is a quote from Blackadder. If you haven't seen Blackadder, you should totally go watch Blackadder. Anyway, let's talk about Cosimo de' Medici. Most of what I've got in the memory bank concerning popes comes from my Templar paper back in the day, which really wasn't focused on popes at all. Well, the popes had to sort of grant the Templars authority, and there was some papal stuff involved, especially with the elimination, but that also had the blessings of the nobility in France, so that's a whole other thing. The Templars, fun story. Remarkably not possessors of a lot of the cool things that people think that they have. Anyway, so remember the burning of the Templar leaders? Yeah, pretty much. Cosimo de' Medici. Who is this guy? Well, first off, it's this guy. Well, is it going to show this guy? Let's see. There we go. Boom. Cosimo de' Medici. And why are we talking about this guy? Well, I put him up at the top because this guy is really going to sort of set the tone for a lot of the other stuff. And this guy was always looking to the left. There's always something interesting going on slightly off to the left. That's a Patton Oswalt quote. Yep. So, who is this guy and why is he a big deal? Well, he's a banker, and he owns the Medici Bank. And the Medici Bank was particularly influential. And over the course of Cosimo's life, and this is in the late 1300s and early 1400s AD, Cosimo is going to sort of get involved with the church, especially on the sort of high levels of the church. And he is going to get his bank into being the official bank of the Pope. So one of the things about Catholic Church leadership at that time is that they had to travel a lot. And you did not want to carry around large sums of money with you while you were traveling because, you're going to get jacked. So you would carry banknotes. And because leaders of the church traveled a lot, they needed reliable banking systems. And Cosimo was going to be their bank guy. And this is going to push his bank brand really, really high up in the terms of competition with other banks in Europe. And he is going to open up branches all across Europe, as far away as places like London, England. So this guy is going to be raking in the money, and he is incredibly wealthy. And he is going to sort of establish the Medici family as kind of the dominating force in the politics of Florence. Now, Florence was run by a sort of governing council, but Cosimo was effectively going to buy people out. A lot of the positions in Florence were going to be people that were sort of on his dole and on his payroll, and this is going to be how he sort of gets his way in things. But this guy is also going to be a giant lover of art. And he has this idea that Florence should be the most beautiful city on the face of the earth. And if he could do something to help that, he should. And he's going to be a really famous patron of the arts. Some of this stuff that we'll talk about later when we talk about Donatello, that's a lot from him. But I do want to talk about a particular building that Cosimo, well, actually two buildings that Cosimo de' Medici is going to patronize. Yes, usury, which was very much frowned upon. But the thing about usury is it's not something that the Catholic Church supposedly let people do, but a lot of people did it anyway. And it's pretty clear that a lot of these people that were very rich and were big bankers saw some of their patronized work as a way to give back, right? So like the usury suspects. That's a great one. That's a great one. So, yes, I'm taking money from loans, but look, I'm building cool stuff. I'm building churches. I'm decorating churches. I'm beautifying the city that I live in. So I'm not being super greedy. I'm just being a little greedy, right? So this is sort of a mental salve. We're gonna let people go, and we're gonna do some stuff here, and we're gonna be okay because, I can justify this in my head if I just build a church every now and then, right? It's for charity, right? So I'm going to put on the adventure hat. And for those of you that don't know, this is the adventure hat. I carry it with me when I travel. And when I talk about places that I have been or things that I have seen with my own eyes, I get to wear the adventure hat, and we get to fill the chat up with super cool adventure hat emotes like such. Voila! Okay, so I'm about to show you a really cool building. And this is a photograph that I took when my wife and I went to Florence back in 2011. This is the main dome of a big church called Il Duomo. Well, it's not actually called Il Duomo. Okay, so I should be clear here. The Florentines call this church Il Duomo, but its actual name is the Cathedral of St. Mary of the Flowers, Santa Maria del Fiore. That's the actual name of the church. But what we're looking at here, hey Cammy, welcome. What kind of Howl's Moving Castle tax evasion is this charity? What we're specifically looking at right here is this big dome. And during the period of time that Cosimo was being super rich, there was an architect. Actually, there was a bit of a contest to see who could come up with the coolest design for this dome. And a guy named Filippo Brunelleschi is going to design this particular dome, and Cosimo de' Medici is going to finance it. So he is going to bankroll a lot of this big stuff up here. And it's actually a really interesting style of dome, and this is something that becomes a pretty common thing in other really big churches. It's actually a double dome. So there is the larger, higher outside dome that is really, really rigid. And then there's an inside dome that is a little bit smaller, but there's a gap between the outside and the inside dome. And this is specifically done so that the elements outside don't get to the dome inside, because the inside of the dome, if you look up into it, is famously painted with all sorts of really cool images. And I'm realizing right now that I should have shown you pictures of those, and I didn't, and that's on me. But you can Google Dome of Il Duomo, and you'll find all this stuff. Wasn't that in the Da Vinci Code? I don't think the Dome of Florence was. That was the Castello Sant'Angelo in Rome. I've been there too, so I can still wear the thing here. I heard you like domes in your domes. It might have been. I don't know if I can't. It's been so long since I've read the Da Vinci Code that I honestly can't remember what all was in there. I do quite like Dan Brown, but I've only read all of his stuff once. So this is something that Cosimo de' Medici finances. Now, before we get too far into this and you go, oh, so he's such a great patron, let me show you his house. This is the courtyard of the Palazzo de' Medici, which is in Palazzo Medici, which is in Florence. And this is a really big building that's still there today. You can still go see it. And it was designed by Michelozzo Michelozzi. I've seen fight movies start this way. At that point, we don't call it a house anymore. Right? It's a palace. So Palazzo is palace, the palace of the Medici. And he funded all of this stuff for himself. Yeah, it's it's pretty honkin' big, right? But to be fair, he also opened a library and had a lot of books printed, which was incredibly expensive during the time. This is pre-printing press. So Cosimo de' Medici, big dude. Now, we need to talk a little bit about what happens because of Cosimo de' Medici. And that is, again, the Medici family becomes the stuff. And because of his connections with the Pope, he's going to be able to get a lot of things done sort of his way. Now, he's not going to openly abuse this relationship, but here's what happens. The Pope changes, right? When the Pope dies or retires, we get a new Pope. And if you're cozy with one Pope, it doesn't mean you're cozy with the next one. Is that a random statue, or is that of himself for charity? No, I don't actually know what the statue is, Cammy. Hey, Captain Crunch. Hi, what is this? You're new. So, welcome. This is Adventures in History. My name is Shane. I teach history for a living here at a college in the state that I live. And we hang out and talk history in a kind of a goofy and fun, lighthearted, pop culturally filled, referenced way. So, Florentines of history, indeed. The stuff, he becomes an alien white fluffy use. No, not the stuff. That is such a horrible and also very great movie. So let's remember that popes change, and we'll skip a little bit to Lorenzo de' Medici. This is Cosimo's grandson. He's also head of the Da Vinci Bank. However, the Pope had changed. And at the point that we're talking now, you thought this was the history of Florence and the Machine. I tried so hard to figure out a way to get a Florence and the Machine song as a title for this stream. And the best one that I came up with was What the Arno Gave Me. But I don't know how many people listen to Florence and the Machine, and I don't know how many people know that the Arno is the river that runs through Florence. So it would have had to have been like lots of explaining. There was suggested Florentines in the Machine, but I got a little confused about, Cosimo Love, but that doesn't directly, like, people don't know that the name of the song is Cosmic Love, and if you don't know that Florence and the Machine sings a song called Cosmic Love, that's just like, Cosimo loved people? My Italian heritage as a second generation would like to share how De Medici? Techman, you are free to correct me. My Italian is not the best. I know how to repeat C about 18 times. Put it on the background, the best of both worlds. Hey, Moose, welcome. And hey, Techman, welcome. So, Captain Crunch, if you would like, you are welcome to ask as many questions as you would like. You can participate in the chat as much as you would like. You are welcome to do your whole big thing. Love that small bit of water and the land looks like a little slug. Well, that's Slither, and that's a different horror movie, but we can talk about that. Cassidy wishes she could chat so bad right now. Hunk, just transliterate all of her stuff for her, and perhaps she was dictating. I'm sure that Cassidy knows all of the fun little details that I'm not sharing about all of this stuff. As long as it's not species. Hey, what's wrong with species? Let me just say this, and I won't get into why. I'll just let your imaginations run. As a pubescent boy, Species was the movie for a while for me. Anyway, Lorenzo de Medici, or however we can say his name. Lorenzo, we'll just call him Lorenzo. How about that? The Pope had changed, and the new Pope is this guy named Sixtus IV. And you go, Sixtus IV. Why is it Sixtus IV and not Sixtus VI? Yeah, I know. That's what you're probably thinking. Sixtus IV. And here's the thing. There are a lot of people inside Italy that do not like the Medici family. And they specifically don't like the fact that they are so in charge of Florence and they're basically being in charge of everything. And there's a group of people in the city of Pisa, which is where the Leaning Tower is, and they had special beef against Florence. And these two cities are sort of like rivals. And there was an archbishop in Pisa that worked up a plan to assassinate Lorenzo. And it failed. And the great story is like they were walking up the steps of this church, and the assassin rushes up, and this guy who was hanging around with Lorenzo that was actually a poet, stabs this guy, and I just imagine that he's saying, "Today the sword is mightier than the pen," because, the pun there. That's how he was known. That's how who was known. Lorenzo the Magnificent. Yes, indeed, because he's fabulously wealthy. Only Sixtus deals with absolutes. Luckily, we both forgot about it, so you didn't have to sit through it with your dad. Oh, yeah, that's horrible. Yes, Lorenzo the Magnificent. He's a rich, rich guy. So Lorenzo's going to sort of start retaliating against this, and the plot gets uncovered, and it looks like this is going all the way back to Rome, and maybe the Pope was in on this. And Lorenzo decides, okay, well, Pope, if you really want to do this, come at me, bro. And Lorenzo puts together an army. He calls all of his friends. He's like, hey, Milan, you want to come fight the Pope? And they're like, yeah, I'm not doing anything this weekend. And this actually breaks out in a war between forces that are backed by the papal side of things and Lorenzo and his Florentine troops and the allies of Florence. And Lorenzo not only wins, he comes out of it like so much more powerful. Come at me, Pope. Wait, you mean there was corruption? I know, it's crazy. Here's a quick link to the pronunciation. Oh, so we're going to play this, and then I'll say it the right way for the rest of the night. I recognize these. It's going to say how to pronounce.
Pronouncenames.com.
Wait, you guys are getting paid?
Cosimo de Medici.
Medici. Yeah, I knew this first syllable was supposed to be stressed more. De Medici. Thank you, Techman. I will only accept it if you read it as robotically. Cosimo de Medici. There we go. Going to be honest, some of those Italian churches have traumatized me, like Santa Maria della Vittoria Basilica, with the Ecstasy of St. Teresa statue and St. Victoria's incorruptible body on display. Did you look at the curled toes? Is that what it was? Yeah, St. Teresa was in a little bit too much ecstasy there. If you don't know what that is, I know that that's in the Da Vinci Code. So Lorenzo wins the war against the papal forces and comes out of it smelling like roses and much more dominant, and having eliminated a lot of his opponents, not the Pope directly, but a pretty big deal of things here. And what this is going to do is bring him more power and bring him more money. So what's he going to do with all of that money? Well, he hangs out with cool people and parties with all the cool cats. You ever heard of Michelangelo? He actually lived with Lorenzo for a while in that big honkin' palace that I just showed you pictures of. Also, I haven't even shown you pictures of this guy. I have a photo of Lorenzo, and we can look at him. Let's look at Lorenzo. Boom. If you're wondering why he's so scowly looking, this apparently is fairly accurate to the way that he acted and looked. The historical sources are not too kind about this guy. His mother apparently didn't care for him at all and actually sort of doted on his other sibling. But he was described as sort of dour and not really tall and kind of homely looking. But, I mean, he's a smart as heck dude, so that's how you look when you wake up, minus the fancy hat. Don't cross him. Exactly. That's the thing. So another thing that he does with all that money is pays for really awesome art. Now, I should note before I say the next thing, this is speculative, but pretty firm. So I can't say 100%, but if you made me guess, I would guess that Lorenzo was the patron for one of the most famous paintings in all of Italy, and that is a painting called Primavera, which is by Sandro Botticelli. And you have probably seen this picture before. If you have not seen this picture, you may have seen another one of Botticelli's work, which is The Birth of Venus, where the woman is standing in the seashell. So this is Primavera, and it is pretty likely to have been commissioned by Lorenzo. Here I thought you were going to say he just kept commissioning art of species. No, this is really beautiful. This is currently one of the cooler pictures that I've seen. What is happening on the right? This is lots of... That's basically the Venus. So this is an embodiment of spring. And these are very... Okay, I can't keep up with what everybody's saying. Hold on a second now. Is there a Persephone moment happening on the right? Are you talking about where the old guy is coming in and grabbing the woman? I would guess that is probably likely. This is in the Uffizi, and if you want to go check that out, you can go check that out. So there are a few people that are in here. This is one of the winds. Yes, he is a wind. I'm not certain exactly which one it is. If I had to guess, I would say it's probably Zephyrus. the spring wind, who is kidnapping or taking over this chick. Well, if it's Zephyrus, that's probably Chloris. And then you have this woman here who is covered with flowers, who, I don't know, she's flowers. This here in the middle is Venus. Zephyrus, the west wind, about to take a nymph named Chloris. Yay, there we go. After he succeeds in taking her for his own, they are married. Yes, okay, so that I actually did know. Everybody's gangsta until the wind shows up, right? So this is probably either the embodiment of spring herself or flowers. This is pretty clearly Venus. Then we have over here the three chicks are probably the three Graces, and then you have good old fashioned Cupid, or is that Cupid? Nope, that's not Cupid. That's probably Mercury. Yep, he's got the winged sandals on. Mercury. Boom, there we go. There's your little cherub up there. So awesome, cool. I had never really gone through that, but awesome. We figured it all out. Congratulations. Do I need to have covered any of this stuff up? No. Okay, everybody's all covered. I'm not breaking Twitch TOS by showing you things that for whatever reason they would be upset about. Who knows? I have the hat on because we've been to the Uffizi and I've seen that. I did not use the picture from the Uffizi that I took because guess what? You can't take pictures in the Uffizi. Also, if I had, I would want to use a big one that's high quality anyway because, cool paintings like that, you just want to get the full effect. So, have you been in the painting? I can neither confirm nor deny that. So, another thing that Leonardo did was he helped this other guy. I'm sorry, not Lorenzo. Not Leonardo, Lorenzo. Another thing that Lorenzo did was help this other guy named Leonardo get jobs. This is Leonardo da Vinci. And Lorenzo may have directly commissioned Leonardo, but we don't know that for certain. There is some evidence that he had he commissioned a musical instrument, but it's never been completely proven. The Uffizi was also made originally by Lorenzo. Yes, I'm working on that. The top gallery was his personal hangout where he displayed his patron artwork and brought high-ranking officials to show off his works because he was magnificent. And Cassidy, thank you. You can bring all of this, and more of that. Llamas? I don't know what the reference to llamas is. Like in Blue's Clues? No, not like Blue's Clues. I don't like Blue's Clues. And part of that is because of my age when I started watching it. And part of it is because I don't like the shows that pause really, really long. Like, do you see it? And if David is still here, I know we've already had this discussion. When you started watching it, yeah, see, the thing is, I have a younger sibling, and we had one TV for a long time, and if you wanted to watch TV, you had to split time up, so you watched what the younger sibling wanted to watch. Well, do you? Do you see it? Where could it be? And now for our newest segment, Mail Time. Mail Time, Mail Time. Yeah, whatever. Backpack. Lorenzo Lamas. I see that now. I get that connection. I didn't get the llamas connection though. Like Dora, I don't care for Dora either. That wasn't my little sister. That was my niece, who was a huge Dora fan. Uffizi found some art during the COVID closures. Ah, they did. What about her cousin Diego? I never got to Diego. Dora just has no object permanence. That's right. She's gotten massive short-term memory loss. She's like a child. Anyway, so he helps Leonardo da Vinci get jobs, maybe have commissioned him directly. But this whole problem with the Pope, this whole Popin issue with Sixtus IV and being a jerk and maybe trying to get Lorenzo killed, how are you going to handle that? I'm glad you caught that, Cammy. She's like a child. How are you going to fix that? Well, you get your son and you push your son into the position of Pope. So that's what Lorenzo did. Leo X. Pope Leo X. Guess what? He's Lorenzo's son. And he's the Pope. He is this guy sitting here in the middle. Interestingly enough, because I'm trying to share cool pictures of art. I hope that Cassidy can at least see the photos. This painting is a portrait done by Raphael. Yes, that Raphael. And when Leo X became Pope, one of the things that he did was hire a whole bunch of really big artists, including people that he had met in Florence, bring them down to Rome and have them deck out all of the stuff in the Vatican, including a lot of the paintings that Raphael did.
Friends, Romans, countrymen,
Lend me your ears.
I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him.
Yes, this is a little bit later in his life after he's an adult. Otherwise, he would be a very massively overweight toddler. So, yeah, Raphael does a lot of painting inside of the Vatican. Now, some of the famous stuff that he did, some of the stuff that people might know about, like the School of Athens, that was actually done a little bit before Leo's time under the previous pope, but other stuff done in places in the Vatican by Raphael, patronized by Leo X, because pretty art makes Popin just a little bit easier, right? The birth was very painful. Unfortunate, but probably accurate. So let's skip ahead a little bit, and we'll change the mix a bit, and we'll actually talk about Catherine de' Medici, or Caterina, which is the Italian version of it. She is this lady. And you go, well, why the devil are we talking about this lady? Does she patronize art? Well, I'm sure she does, but she's also the Queen of France. Because it turns out that if your family is super honkin' rich, and your family is the Pope, and your family is the richest banker in Europe, you can marry the King of France. And that's how far the Medicis managed to get. Catherine marries Henry III, who was the King of France. I'm sorry, Henry II, who was the King of France at the time, and had lots of kids with him. I know her. You talked about her because she's fascinating. Do they have more houses? Yeah. Well, when you get married to the King of France, you move to the big palace in Paris. Sounds so easy. Just marry the king. The fully formed head of Zeus, that was Athena. But it was a really bad headache. Bad enough to get a hammer and a pick to the head. So, oh, those Henrys, and there's Catherine's. Yeah, this is Henry II. So he marries Catherine de' Medici. They have lots of sons, and Henry dies rather young. And so Catherine's eldest son, a guy named Francis II, takes over, and he rules for a little while, and then he dies rather young without a son, and Charles IX takes over, so Catherine is once again acting as regent / the power behind the throne, and Charles IX rules for a brief period of time, and then he dies. And then her other son, Henry III, takes over, who is a child. So Catherine gets to be regent for a little bit longer. And before you start asking, did she kill all of her kids and her husband so that she could be in power longer? The answer is probably not. France was in a really rough period of time during this era. She was alive from 1519 to 1589. And during this period of time, Catherine oversaw a big war inside of France between Catholic forces, which of course were on her side, and a group of Calvinists called Huguenots. And there was a really big series of wars going on and battles and lots of horrible stuff and people getting thrown out of windows in Prague, and it got really, really nasty. And Catherine was always this stalwart defender of the French crown, and of course the protector of French Catholicism, and certainly did not oversee massive executions. Yeah, actually she did, and was probably involved in this thing called the St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre, where a whole bunch of Protestants were killed while they were coming out of church. So she had someone else do it. Allegedly. Probably not, maybe yes. Historically, no. Gotta defend that crown from all those sons. Oh yes, the defenestration. Vern, I'm so glad that you know that word. That's a great word. Defenestration. It means being thrown out of a window. Too drafty of a palace, if you ask me, which naturally means an early death. Well, one of them did sort of die from what might have been lung stuff. So maybe tuberculosis, maybe? We don't... There's a lot of speculation. I don't think that there is enough evidence there to suggest that Catherine killed all of these people. There's some evidence that one of them may have been poisoned, but it might not have been by her. It might have been by these other people that were... Strangling counts as lung stuff. I guess. In a way. Die too young, lung stuff. Yep, there we go. There we go. That's what happens. That's what happens. All right, so let's be done talking about our politicians. Just know that the Medici family is still around and they're still very popular and they're very, 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 very wealthy. And let's talk about some artists. And we're going to start with what might be the most important artist that a lot of people probably, I don't know, you may have heard of this guy. A guy named Cimabue. Cimabue, if I'm saying it in the old Italian way. You got to put the accent on the boo. Cimabue. Who is this guy? Well, do what is wrong with my child. He's old enough to drive. Gets pillow. I will miss him. Oh, old family with money is still around with old and lots of money. Yes, shocking. I know, it's crazy. Who is this guy? So, in a way, this guy basically kickstarted the Renaissance art style of realism. And if you know anything about art history, even if you don't know a lot about art history, if you've ever looked at a medieval painting and you know that everybody is sort of very flat and you have sort of like the Peppa Pig eye thing going where their eyes are both on the same side of their head and there's not really any sort of shadow. It's kind of like flatness. Well, that's because people had forgotten how to do the art. And Cimabue is going to be the guy that sort of goes, there's this thing called light, and when it hits things, it makes this other thing called shadow. And yeah, we could paint that, and it would add depth to the image. And people are like, you're a wizard. You just made Cassidy's day. The face you're making when describing flat. Yes. Wasn't expecting that answer. Fiat lux. Yes, let there be light. So Cimabue is one of the guys that really figures out how to do the light stuff. And let me show you some of his paintings, and this will become pretty evident pretty quick. And let me again remind you, this is early stuff. And he's doing a lot of this painting in the late 1200s. So this is a piece called Santa Trinita Mesta, or the Holy Trinity. And what you can see here, if we're looking at it, look at this. It's shading. Look at all this. It looks like it's three-dimensional because this is realism. Now, you can still tell that there is a lot of medieval influence still going on here. There's a little bit of a flatness to the face. There's a little bit of sort of the dead eye thing going on here. But this guy is one of the dudes that really gets this stuff going. Chiaroscuro. You die a little every time you hear that. They forgot that babies aren't tiny men with abs and fully mature face. Exactly, right? To paint a baby, just draw a man small. Oh yeah, check out all this detail stuff and the feathers and the wings here. This is really beautiful art. Really great levels of detail here. Even in the throne here, you can see that this is designed so that it looks like there is light hitting it. And this is one of the biggest important pieces that we could have looked at. Baby is clearly just a full-grown man from far away. I like when they remember that you can paint people in front and behind of you instead of all in a row. Yes, depth of field. It's an important thing. Look at that kid. His face is fully 40. Let's look at another Cimabue piece, and this is probably the most famous one. And this is actually a rather old picture of it. This is a crucifix that currently resides and has resided for quite some time in a church inside Florence called Santa Croce. And the reason that I am showing you an older picture of this is because, unfortunately, this particular piece was hung pretty low to the ground, and the church flooded. So if you look at a modern picture of this, they've done some restoration work, but a lot of this portion here, sort of in the middle part, and then some of the stuff that's around the edges, and a lot of the stuff that's down here at the bottom has pretty heavy water damage. And there's been a lot of restoration work done on it, and some incredibly detailed work, to the point that some of the restorers actually went into the room where the water was standing and tried to recover flecks of the original paint from the water. Yeah, there is a picture of the unrestored. Cami, if you just Google Cimabue crucifix, you'll be able to pull one up. And I should put the hat back on because I've seen the version that has unfortunately been water damaged. It's not in the same place that it used to be. Now it's a lot higher off the ground in another part of the building. That Jesus poses better for pictures than I ever will. Yeah, well, see, that's the thing. Again, we're talking about light and shadow and body and all that kind of fun stuff. He doesn't have a beard, so it's aged him down. Oh, we're still talking about the baby. The baby doesn't often participate in No Shave November. Correct. They don't make those paints anymore. That is also correct. So what they have done is they've tried to fill in some of the space, some of the negative space that was damaged with like a gradient, so it's not quite so evident that parts of it are gone. You know, if it's just like wood and paint right on top of each other, it's sort of this mentally jarring thing. So they filled some of it in with like a line fill that's roughly the same color as the paint would have been. But I mean, it's an 800-year-old piece of art, and it's probably been damaged beyond repair. But the fact that people still take care of it shows you that this guy is the guy. So Cimabue, really important artist. If you haven't heard of him before, go check out more of his work. Really, really cool stuff. Alrighty, now let's get to somebody that I think everybody recognizes. I can't spell. Donatello. Why are some pictures with long hair and some have short hair? I'm not sure what you mean there, Kami. Are you talking about of the crucifix? He did several crucifixes. So you might be looking at different crucifixes. You might have to specify Cimabue crucifix Santa Croce. It's Santa Croce. The restored painting. Is Master Splinter next? No. Caravaggio, yeah. Went so long without the TMNT jokes, though. Yeah. Donatello. Who is this guy? Well, he's an artist, and he's a pretty big artist. He did some painting. He did some architecture. but actually he's a lot more famous for sculpting. And he sculpted in a lot of different mediums. He did a lot of stuff with metal. Was actually an apprentice in a goldsmith shop pretty early in his life, and learned how to work with metal. He liked working in bronze, and we'll show a couple of pictures of those pieces that I think that are particularly interesting. But he also worked on relief, stone relief, and developed a sort of a new technique of doing bas relief that didn't have to be quite so deep. It's sort of shallow bas relief. And I can show you pictures of all this stuff. Let me show you pictures of this stuff. Because, I mean, who wants... Again, this is not the great thing here. So this is a statue of David. This is Donatello's David. And it is a cast in bronze. And I have Twitch TOS proof David here. This is a pretty famous piece. It has a lot of art critique about it. You could look up just gaboodles of people saying a lot of stuff. Like, there's this whole theory about that. Yeah, the hat. Oh, absolutely. That this statue talks about Donatello's particular preferences and his sexual orientation, and there's all the stuff about all sorts of things about Donatello. It's a really cool piece. I would really appreciate. And David has a dad bod. I mean, he's still pretty svelte. He could probably kick my butt. Anyway, this is a smaller piece, but Donatello also did casting in really, really big pieces, like this guy. This is a cast piece in bronze for a guy named Gattamelata. Well, that's his nickname. Who was a pretty important guy from a couple of cities over from Florence. But the reason I shared this particular statue is because this pose, the equestrian pose here, the guy on horseback, this becomes basically the standard for European horseback poses forever. If you've gone to any big city in Europe and have seen a statue of a guy on a horse, it's probably something like this. And it's because Donatello made it popular. This guy, Gattamelata, which by the way is great. It means the honey cat. This was this guy's nickname. Wanted to be reminded. Was it because no one else did it? It's because he did it the best, and he did it in a way that nobody else could equal. The amount of detail that is in this casting is pretty spectacular. And it's clearly multiple pieces. This is not all one big cast, by the way. You would have had to cast this in several different pieces and then merge them together. He was the guy of that one horse pose. Yep. Hey, did you see that honey cat, that big statue that guy made? And like, yeah, that's amazing. Like, I want one made like that. And there we go. You disagree. I'm not sure what you mean. You're sharing a photo here. Okay. That is decidedly not the same. I would suspect, though, that whomever made that guy was aware that there were other horseback statue guys and said, I'm going to make fun of it. I would bet. I would bet. Oh, that was the intro screen. You don't need to see that. I was going to show you bas relief. Let me show you bas relief. This is bas relief, and this is, again, the style that Donatello came up with. It's very, very shallow, but still has a lot of detail. And if you look at other bas reliefs, the amount of distance between this particular figure and, say, the background would usually be a lot deeper. The figures would stand out in much higher relief. because that was the only way that they could figure out to make enough detail, was to make the figure stand out a lot. So what Donatello is doing is actually figuring out how to get that same amount of detail in very, very thin and very low relief. This particular piece, by the way, is called the Ascension. And you can probably guess why. But anyway, so this is Donatello. He is an amazing artist. All sorts of cool things going on here. I love that even in this very shallow relief, you still see all the individual lines of the clothes. You can still see the pose of the body under the clothes. You can tell, like, this is a calf muscle, and that this is a quadriceps muscle, a hamstring over here. This is great stuff. It's a little studded hooves, though. Oh, yeah. Too late. Time to start streaming over from the beginning. That turtle could do anything. Hey, Bubba. Welcome, Bubba. Kenny is right. Is that Botero? I don't know. And we forever have bad Photoshop filters for this. Yes, we do. The trees are beautiful. How do people have that kind of talent? Mad skill and lots of practice. And I am convinced that people that are natively skilled at art just see the world differently. Like, literally, their eyes see the world differently. What a relief. It's the card version of leaving your drawing in line art only. Right? We don't need to do flats. We'll just do the line art. Get that stinking color out of here. All right. Let's actually talk about some popes. And we'll get back on Popin ain't easy. Let's talk about this guy. This guy is Urban the Eighth. I mention him because, well, he was a Florentine, and he made his way up to the Pope. But the reason I particularly talk about this guy, of all of the popes that I could have talked about, this is the guy that put Galileo on trial. If you're familiar, Galileo Galilei was a famous mathematician and scientist, and wrote a whole bunch of stuff that criticized the way that the Catholic Church interpreted the universe. And, well, Urban the Eighth didn't like that. And so he put Galileo on trial. And was the guy that ordered Galileo to be put under house arrest for the rest of his life. Because, science, it's just not really something that the Pope was interested in, because, Popin ain't easy, and ain't got no time for learning about geocentric models and heliocentric models and retrograde orbits and stuff like that. So, go to jail. In the museum in Atlanta, there's a section dedicated to this one guy that was a greengrocer, got bored, became an author, then decided to do marble statues for fun, and then some painted commissions just cuz. You never felt too lazy in your life? Yeah, no, I feel like I'm going to become a sculptor and then do some painting on the side, He got just bored and just made art. Yep. You can't even make art when you're motivated. Just want to try some art. I feel like doing some sculpting. Maybe get a giant block of marble. Oh, man. The next time somebody asks... Okay. I'm tucking that one away. I have a giant block of marble statue. A giant block of marble story that I almost shared there for free, and I'm not going to do it. Somebody's going to have to ask for that. Anyway, so this is Urban the Eighth. Verbin. Urban the Eighth. There we go. How about another one? Clement the 12th. Such great names, right? Pope names. Clement the 12th is this guy. Oh, you'll pry it from me one day. I will share it for a random history fact. Clement the 12th. And you go, okay, well, why is this guy particularly interesting? Well, most notably because he was a Florentine. There we go, right? Florentines, that's the name of the game. And because he was all about some Florence and became Pope, Of course, he wants to beautify the city that he's in, which is Rome, which, by the way, was already pretty honkin' cool. Pry the marble block. Okay, so in the wars between Persia and Greece, these are the Greco-Persian wars. At one point, the Persians invade Greece, and they were so excited about beating the junk out of the Greeks that the Persian emperor brought with him this giant block of marble and artists, because when he beat the Greeks, he was going to have the artists basically build a giant statue right there on the spot, right at that moment. Here's the great thing about it, though. The Greeks won. The Greeks won. And the Persians ran away and left the giant block of marble. So the Greeks carved from that giant block of marble a statue of the goddess Nemesis. And Nemesis is the goddess that punishes those who are too prideful. So that is an awesome story. Gotta love the Athenian cheek there. Just like, oh, yeah, you're gonna beat us? We'll take your giant block of marble and we'll carve a giant middle finger out of it. Hauls giant block of marble, an untrained artist across country, as one does. Loses, as one does. Yep. There's a giant block of marble story for you. I love all of this random junk that's just bouncing around in my head, by the way. Anyway, Clement the 12th, he is going to be important. Did they kill the artist? No. They appreciated artists in Athens. Clement is Pope during a time where Rome needs, I don't know. How about a big fountain? So there's this artist / architect named Nicola Salvi. And Clement goes, hey, Nicola, you've won the right to build a giant honking fountain in Rome. And that is this thing, which is enormous, and it is called the Trevi Fountain. This was, as we can see here on the top, it was, nope, where am I? There we go. Clement the 12th, Pontifex Maximus, boom, bada boom. They didn't just pay them. Bravely ran away. Hey, Foggage, welcome. Brave Sir Robin. To real Vern. Rome is your favorite. Might be your favorite. You're here all week. Nice. You've been there. Cool. Trevi Fountain. Goes to ticket office. Yeah, I'll take one for each night. Thanks. That is an awesome fountain, though. It really is a pretty awesome fountain. So this was built by Nicola Salvi under the commission of Clement the 12th, who was our Florentine Pope. And you have to think that made Popin a little bit easier. Famously in many movies, Foggage, Trevi Fountain is one of probably the most famous landmarks in Rome. All right, moving along. How about writers? How about a guy named Dante, who wasn't even supposed to be here today? Yeah, well, there we go. Boom, there's Dante. This is Dante Alighieri. On the subject of popes, do we really not know the succession of popes good enough to debunk Pope Joan? Yeah, we do. Pope Joan is 100% debunked. That fountain took a lot of your spare change. I suspect so. In euros, that's a lot. You missed Chimabue. Did you miss the whole discussion, Cassidy? 2 hats and some leaves. Oh yeah, Dante. Good choice with the Dante. Absolutely. Love me some Dante. Poet extraordinaire. Here's the thing about Dante, though. Wrote some poetry. Pretty good stuff. His most famous work, of course, is the Divine Comedy. And the most famous portion of that is Dante's Inferno. It's actually a 3-part thing. It has heaven and purgatory and hell, just so that you're interested. Cappuccino Ossuary. Yeah, I gotta love all that stuff. Oh, Cassidy. I showed the Santa Trinita Maestra, the big triptych that he did, and then we talked a lot about the crucifix that was in Santa Croce, and I shared some pictures from before it was damaged, or a picture from before it was damaged. And we talked about the restoration work, which I'm sure you could probably talk about a lot. Didn't you meet the people that were doing some of the restoration on Cimabue's cross or crucifix? Where's Randall? I don't know. You walked to the top of St. Peter's. Yeah, nice. So, here's the thing about Dante. He wrote a lot of cool stuff, but he was actually kicked out of Florence. There were a lot of people that were arguing inside of Florence, and there were a couple of different factions, and Dante ended up on the wrong side of some of these factional rifts inside of Florence and got exiled from Florence. And he left and never came back. And the Florentines realized, oh, we've done something wrong. And what's really funny is that they even just recently, like in the 2000s, they passed a law rescinding the punishment of Dante and then tried to get his body back. His body is currently in Ravenna, another city sort of just across the peninsula from Florence. But if you go to Florence, and I'll put the hat back on, I love Florence, by the way. If you go to Florence, you can see Dante's tomb, right? Which is this thing. But here's the thing. He ain't there. This is what we call a cenotaph. He's not buried there. You went to a Franciscan high school, so that was doubly fascinating? Yeah, good stuff. I was fine with the viewing rooms, but having it over your head, it's a no. Please don't do that, please. My imagination had them falling on your head and you weren't prepared for that. Who's buried in Dante's tomb? Not Dante. There's nobody home. So Florence actually tried to get Dante's remains. They're like, hey, Ravenna, would you like to give us Dante back? And Ravenna's like, no, he's fine. And at one point in much earlier history, the people in Ravenna were so afraid that the Florentines were going to try to do something to get Dante's body back that they actually built a fake wall inside the church to hide his actual tomb. So if you came bursting in like, we're going to get Dante's bones, it was hidden. It was hidden behind a fake wall. Who's buried in Dante's tomb? Game show question, yeah. Do you know what U.S. presidents aren't buried in America? You know what would be cool if you gave that back? It would be cool, wouldn't it? Gotta head off for dinner. Thank you as always. Hey, Jay, thanks for coming by. Thank you for that gift sub, man. Much appreciation. Clinton, Bush, Obama, Trump, and Biden, also Carter. Take care, Cammie. Glad you all could come by. Seriously, everybody, if you are not already following both of these lovely people, please go do so. I gave Jay a shout out earlier. I need to go ahead and do the shout out for the Cammie. There we go. Is it going to work? Hey, there we go. We've got other people here. Let's do some more shout outs because I feel like I want to do those. Cassidy. If you want to know more about Florence, including people that have lived there recently, go follow Cassidy, and you'll also get to see cool art. Oh, Kelly was in. Kelly. Go follow Kelly, who does awesome paint stuff. And there's some Athena love. Yep. Go follow Kelly. Kelly, we miss you streaming. You should come back to streaming. I know that you got stuff going on, and I'm not trying to pressure you, but you should come back. Everyone here also loves Florence. It's a cool city. All right. Soon. Yep. I feel ya. What about another guy? I could spell. Machiavelli. Machiavelli. Yeah, what about that guy? Niccolo. He's a writer. He's a writer. Boom. There he is. Oh, yeah, man. This school year is kicking my butt. I cannot tell you how stressed out I am right now. I am hiding it really, really well. I look so composed and relaxed and in charge, but underneath the surface, there is this boiling tension that's like, you've got projects to do by Friday. I hope you know that I'm yelling at your phone as if we're having a conversation. You're so excited. The writer formerly known as the Prince. Yes. Yes. That's education, like Plato's. Yeah, exactly. We're going to stare at this wall and just look at shadows, right? Any thoughts on helping to make the distinction between what is a relic or a reliquary and an artifact? Naturally, they're all under the same category as them old things. So, yes, I can actually clarify that. Oh, I'm sorry, puppy. Hey, we've got a puppy here. Do you all, would you like to see the puppy? Come and see me. Come on. Oh, yes, we've got some puppy. Hello, Kaylee. What are you doing? You need some sugar? Oh, some sugars. Oh, hello. Oh, so many sugars. What are you up to? Huh? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you up to? There's nothing in here for you. There's no T words. Hey, you need to stop licking your legs. Hey. What are you doing? Do you want to come up over here now? You want to come up on this side? Come on. Oh, yes, there's the puppy. See, there's nothing over here. I'm talking to the people on the stream. I don't know what you want. Hey, you need to stop itching. Her allergies are going just absolutely crazy right now. Yes, when the puppy arrives, we share the puppy emote. Puppy. Oh, Wolfoggage just says, yes, I would like to see the puppy. Okay. Them old things. Okay, so what's the difference between a relic and an artifact? A relic comes from a saint. And to be a saint, you have to go through the process of being a saint. And that is very involved and has an entire apparatus within the Catholic Church to decide whether or not you are or are not a saint. And if you are a saint at that point, your artifacts become relics. Artifact, otherwise, is just some dead guy's finger bone or something. Like, I got a knuckle bone of St. Peter. No, you don't. That's not him, because we already know where everybody claims that those are. Anyway, yada, yada, yada. So difference is whether or not you were a saint. Love the war puppy. Oh, yes. She wants to ask her questions other than current plans or activities. Puppy of war, like, it's a bad pun on, well, it's not really a pun. It is a reference to a Shakespeare line, cry havoc and let slip the dogs of war. But she clearly is not. She's a giant fluff ball. For those of you that did not see the literal giant ball of floof that I brushed out of her this afternoon, go to the Discord and look at the pictures and video section. I got a ball of fur out of her that's probably about as big around as a large-sized cantaloupe. Yeah, you got to have the miracles. You went to this exhibit of relics, and the reliquaries were horrible because everybody wants everything visible now. It's just the same circle thing with a piece of... Yeah, pretty much. If you put a saint's body parts into a nice little container, isn't it a reliquary? Yes. Reliquary is an item that holds a relic. And it doesn't have to be see-through. It can be many, many things. It can be a big box. It can be a little shadowy thing. It can be little things, lots of stuff. Like the hand of St. Teresa, which is basically the Infinity Gauntlet. Pretty much. Okay, so who is this Machiavelli guy? Well, he's a writer, pretty famously a writer, and he wrote this thing called The Prince. Yes, he's also into politics. So if you've ever read The Prince or know anything about The Prince, it is a guide to how to be a good politician, according to Machiavelli, which is basically be a jerk to everybody, and if they're afraid of you, that's a good thing. Which is sort of his advice. Love is underrated. Love is not going to make people loyal to you. Fear, yeah, that'll keep them in line, though. He actually ran the Florentine militia for a while and was rather successful in battle, and did a lot of stuff that got him in some trouble. For a brief period of time, he got exiled, and then he got recalled from exile, and then he got arrested, and he was actually tortured for a while. How very Machiavellian. I know, it's kind of weird. Yeah, he got hung from his arms until they popped out a socket and tortured for a while. And after that decided, I'm kind of done with things. So I'm going to just kind of nope out for the rest of the day, and you guys can do stuff that you want, but I'm going to go rest. Because, there we go. So, yeah, that's Machiavelli. Now, I wanted to sort of come to a bit of a conclusion with something that a lot of people are probably not going to expect, especially coming from me, mostly because I almost always wear t-shirts and blue jeans. But there's one thing that you have to know about Florence. And this is true of most places in Italy. If you get into some of the very, very rural parts of Italy, this might not be such a big thing. But Italians are big on fashion. And you've got to dress well, and you've got to dress the right way. And it should be no surprise that that Florence has had some pretty big clothing designers that have come from them, including that guy, Gucci. No one expects the Spanish Inquisition? Nobody ever expects the Spanish Inquisition. Duh. Gucci. This guy. Yep. The good old Gucci brand. That is him. I am Philip Drew, administrator. Isn't that a mobster? No. Not really. So here's the thing. Inside Florence, there is a pretty big market for leather. He looks like how you expect him to look. Correct, right? So Gucci was originally a leather worker, and way back in the day, he started a shop that literally sold saddlebags. Florence, by the way, he was born in 1881. It's 1881 and died in 1953. So his first job was making leather saddlebags, and leather inside Florence is a big thing. It's sort of one of the things. You can go to the Florentine market, and like you can get anything that's like all the belts and the shoes. And when you hear people say, oh, these are the Italian leather, there's a pretty good chance that it's probably something to do with Florence, or at least the Tuscany region. Leather is a big deal. So he starts making saddlebags. And my joke would be that Gucci probably still makes saddlebags, because I think that they're horrid, but I don't have any fashion sense. So I would also not pay more than maybe $20 for a purse. But again, I have no fashion. But yeah, Gucci brand. Started by Gucci from Florence, in Florence. So many people with matching first and last names. Yes, pretty common. Versace. Nobody is quoting Kreayshawn, because I don't think anybody remembers Kreayshawn, and that's probably okay. one more for the night. All those beep. Roberto Cavalli, who is the guy that started Roberto Cavalli brand. Here he is at one of his stores in New York City. But guess what? Was born and raised in Florence. And he is going to specifically develop as a guy in art school. So he did go to art school and went to sort of fashion school. But he started working with knit stuff. And made a lot of stuff out of wool, which again is really big in Florence to begin with. And he started working with stuff that was animal print. So if you know anything about Roberto Cavalli, apparently that is his big thing. I can confirm from being in Italy multiple times that animal print is a big deal over there. But he's also going to develop a specific type of a method that puts prints on leather. And the particular method that he develops is apparently very durable and very pretty as well. Again, I have no concept of fashion. I have learned all of this because I knew I needed to talk about something to do with fashion, because otherwise Florence would not really be complete. You've got your politics, you've got your money, you've got your art, you've got your thinking, you've got your church, and you got your fashion. Right. Galileo Galilei. Here's the thing though. I did include a little bit of a list here. And some people are probably asking why I'm not talking about certain people. It's because they weren't born in Florence. Galileo was born in Pisa. He was not born in Florence. Leonardo da Vinci. Guess where he was born? Vinci. Yeah. Vinci's not Florence. It's down the road. It's not far, but it's not Florence. Michelangelo, also not born in Florence. Spent time there, but wasn't born there. So again, today was just people born in Florence. You had to be born there. So that's why Galileo's not around. That's why a lot of people weren't on the list. I had to cut down somehow. Otherwise, we would have been here until tomorrow. Purist. Yeah, I know. I had to draw the line, and it helped because otherwise I would have been trying to flip a coin between which, of the people that I was going to talk about might be left leaning against something. I don't know. There we go. All right. None of them are Tim Gunn, right? Okay, so that's all that I had prepared for tonight. I hope that fulfilled all of the desires that all of everybody had when they heard Famous Florentines. I will note that I made it the entire way through the stream tonight, and nobody caught the Easter egg, so I thought about Amerigo Vespucci. I figured that I should, if I had to throw in Italian map makers and cartographers, that would expand the list, and I didn't want to have just Vespucci. He was definitely on there. Amerigo Vespucci, by the way, is an Italian map maker that basically figured out that these continents over here, North and South America, were basically not Asia. Easter egg fell and cracked because we didn't catch it. Yep. Sometimes I sneak in Easter eggs, and the Easter eggs I sneak in are usually the shirts that I'm wearing. And I mean, come on, it's the Ninja Turtles, because all the Ninja Turtles. Yeah. There we go. America. Alrighty. So, if anybody has any, you noticed it. Oh, Figment, when you see it, you've got to say it. You're like, yeah, you're supposed to comment. You just said that half of them aren't Florentine. I know, but this guy is. Wait, where am I? This guy is. I knew. I don't know these things. Yeah, if you notice the Easter egg in the T-shirt, you have to say the Easter egg in the T-shirt. You forget all the popular squares or bridges. Yeah, like Ponte Vecchio. Ponte Vecchio is a big famous bridge. It goes over the Arno. It's a really cool place. My favorite gelato shop in all of Italy is just on the end of Ponte Vecchio. Really cool stuff. Really cool stuff. All right, so at this point, we get to vote on what our next viewer request stream is. And at this point, I will ask you all. And here's how it goes. I'm going to ask you a question, and then the first 4 answers that I think are logical and doable that pop up in the chat are going to go in a poll. And then we're going to vote on what we do next. So what do you all want to talk about next? Christopher Columbus. He's a jerk. History of potatoes and potato adjacent history. Oh, Moose, are we really going to go through every single food? Okay. The gelateria located under the last remaining tower of that old 4 ramparts to the original Ponte Vecchio. Yes, that one. That one. Masters and Johnson. I don't think we can talk about that on Twitch. I'm pretty sure that we're not going to be able to talk about Masters and Johnson on Twitch. I think they would probably shut that down. Nazis and the occult. Nazis and the occult. I actually quite like the idea of Nazis in the occult. I vote we talk about all the people that didn't make the cut for tonight's stream. Okay. Let me see. Where are we at? Have I missed any? Let me see. I got to catch up in the chat. So I got Christopher Columbus. History of potatoes, which we'll see. Masters and Johnson, which I don't think that we could do. That portion of the area... Okay, can everybody stop talking for just a second? I know that sounds horrible. Like, stop communicating with me, because I can't catch up with the chat. Okay, so where are we at? Hopi heirloom blue corn. I don't think I know what that means. That portion of the area of Spain that is not Spain, which made a colonial empire and a hand in Brazil. You mean Portugal? Like the history of Portugal? That's a long stream. We would need to cut that one down. American mythology? I'm not sure what you mean there. Like comic books? The history of comic books? Is that what you're after? Yeah, Tegman, if you wanted to do Portugal, you'd have to narrow that down because that one's like, that's a big old stream. Because we'd go all the way back to, like, give me like a 100 or 200 year block of Portugal. So Portuguese colonization. Okay, we could do Portuguese colonization of the New World. Portuguese NW colonies. There we go. All right, so here we go. I'm going to hit the chat here and start poll. All right, so what you need to do over the next 3 minutes is go up to the top of your chat window and you need to click the little down caret arrow. And then you need to pick your choice. What do you want to talk about? What do you want to talk about? Nazis in the occult coming out strong. Oh, so like American folk tales. So folk tales and mythology are different. And basically a folk tale is never meant to be told in a way that people would think is true. So people sort of always know that they're just sort of like moral stories. Mythology has a basis in trying to explain the unexplainable or the ununderstood stuff. So, wow, Nazis in the occult is running away with it. So, yeah, I mean, we could do, like, Paul Bunyan and Alfred Bullock Stormalong and Pecos Pete and John Henry. That would actually be a fun one. I wouldn't have a problem with that. We could do, like, I don't know if we could do American cryptids. Cryptids is another one, like... I don't know if that's necessarily... I mean, I guess it would sort of be history. And I'm arguing about this even though, like, the little kid part of me would love to do the history of cryptids because I freaking love stuff like that. Like Mokelia Mimbe and the skunk ape and Mothman and Bigfoot and stuff like that. Just, oh, I love that junk. It's not junk, but I just love that stuff. Like, that's... It's right up my alley. All right, so it looks like Nazis in the occult is just going to run away with it. Cryptids are totally myth and you know it. Mac in a lab coat. Come at me, bro. You can't prove they don't exist. You'd have to select. And history and myth is history. Yeah, in a certain way. Myth contains history. All right, so unless everybody else in the chat decides to vote for one of them right now, looks like Nazis in the occult is going to win. You're Bubba Squatch. Oh, Bubba, man, I forgot to give you a shout out. For those of you that don't know my friend Bubba, please go check out Bubba World Comics. He is a puppet builder and an artist that does traditional art and does inking and penciling, does comic strips on his streams. He's got a line of t-shirts that he's designing. Please go check out Bubble World Comics. He's a cool guy. One of the only other people that I know that can read and write hieroglyphics. So that alone is a selling point. Go check out Bubble World Comics. He's a cool dude. Didn't realize that people like Nazis more than potatoes. Have I enjoyed the Drabblecast? I have not experienced the Drabblecast yet. So, you so much SS uniforms, Pop was a Nazi living. Interesting. The Portugal-Brazil connection for another time. Yes, so what happens is that number 2 gets carried over to the next vote. And the reason we didn't carry over number 2 to this vote is because number 2 got immediately requested by Joey. Joey the Saint, like, immediately requested the number 2 winner from last poll. So I'm old. They were teaching hieroglyphics when you were in school. Oh, Bubba, that's not true. You're young at heart, my friend, and that's why we love you. Okay, so I also want to talk a brief amount of time, very, very briefly, about the Request Your Own Adventure redemptions. I'm going to start doing those a little bit differently. So if you don't know, or if you're new to the channel, one of the channel redemptions is like Choose Your Own Adventure, which is a pun of the old Choose Your Own Adventure books that were very popular when I was a kid. So if you have 10,000 points, you can name a stream, basically. You can choose your own adventure, and we will add that as a viewer request in the schedule. After you have chosen your first one, the next one is 20,000 points. And I do that to try to make sure that people that are new to the stream don't have to constantly feel as if they are in competition with people that have been around longer. I want everybody that comes in to have sort of the same amount of access to that first threshold. So if you know a stream that you want to have, and so, like, if you have the idea and you have the points, at certain points in time, I will ask people, does anybody want to request a stream? And at that point, we will then open up the specific redemption, and then somebody can redeem it, and then we will close that. What ends up happening, like it happened last time, and I don't mind this, I also just don't want people to wait forever for their streams. What ends up happening is sometimes we'll do a vote, and then I'll have a couple of redemptions like right on top of each other, and that it seems like people get stretched really, really far away from the point of their redemption. For example, when Hunk redeemed this one, it was over a month ago, or right at about a month ago. So I want to try to make sure that I don't sit on stuff so long anymore. And I'm going to do that by being a little bit more conservative about how I gatekeep those. So we just did a viewer request where actually everybody voted. So when we get done with this one, I will ask everybody, do you have a channel redemption? And the first person that gets set to me will get to redeem that. So can we get on a call this week and video chat so you can show some of this collection? This week is not a good week. I have a paper, I have a final, and I had, like when I got into work today, I had 112 assignments that I needed to grade that I have to get done by Friday. I have another stream on Thursday night. Tomorrow night is sacred. Wednesday nights are date night. My wife and I don't do anything but hang around together. And Friday, I'm going to basically have to spend all night writing a paper. So, yeah. This week is not a good week. Just have one of your students grade the paper. Sure. Yeah. Or everyone just made a B. Some people would be really, really happy with that. Some people would be massively upset by that. All right, so let's go do a raid. I know where we're going. We're going to go raid Pinky. So for those of you that do not know, Pink Epoxy is a great artist here on Twitch. She has been oh so kind and raided me a few times with very, very large raiding groups. So we're going to go see Pinky. You think she's about to end, so... well, I still want to take you over there. We'll go very, very quickly. I'm going to click the button right now. We're going to go raid Pink Epoxy. She's painting a picture of one of her streamers, one of her guests, a visual nomad, and we're going to go real quick, so I'm going to push the button. When we get to Pinky's channel, I would like for everybody to do the battle cry, which is just adventure. And then we shall throw all of the fun hats into the ring, metaphorically and emotically. Thank you all so very, 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 very much for hanging out. When you get to Pinky's stream, please do show her some love and throw all of the fun follows to her direction. Hang out in her chat. She's a really awesome artist and a really cool person. Thank you all so much. I have had a great night. It's always more fun when people get involved. Thank you, and I will see you all next time.